Well, thank you everyone for joining. My name is Eugene Schneeberg. I'm director of the Every Youth, Every Facility Coalition. We're so grateful for those of you across the country who have joined us, and we're super grateful for the folks from Jails to Job who are here with us from the Austin, Texas area. So I'm joined, like we do every month, by my co-host, Dr. Scott Larson, founder, president of Straight Ahead Ministries. We're so grateful to have Chris Haskins, the founder of Jobs to Jails, Jails to Job, with us, and one of his main leaders, Brother Jeremiah Cooper, on with us. Thank you guys for being with us today. In the Know is all about sharing information that can be practical and useful for folks that are involved in juvenile justice ministry. And so with that being said, we have over 50 coalition partners in the Every Youth, Every Facility Coalition, but the work you all do is unique. You really emphasize the importance of jobs as part of your employment-based mentoring program. So Chris, why don't you get us started and share with us about, why jobs are so important in the context of what you do?
Yeah, I mean, there's many reasons that we really jumped on the job train. Partially would be because of Straight Ahead Ministries and what we learned from them. But for me, coming out of a background of being both a youth pastor and also running a nonprofit that focused on mentoring, we saw the value in time together. And the job was just a multiplier of that. When you can hire someone and they're with you shoulder to shoulder for hours, you have the ultimate amount of influence. We know that we spend more time at our jobs typically than we do even at home or with our family. So as we're looking to be a big influencer, job was the answer.
Awesome. And so tell us a little bit about how you incorporate spiritual development into your day-to-day. I know you guys are working on construction sites and a whole bunch of different jobs projects. How does that translate to the kids kind of growing in their faith? Jeremiah, you want to take that one?
Yeah, so we've had, we're good at getting volunteers in who want to serve our youth, and they come in, once a week, like maybe on a Wednesday for about an hour in the morning to have Bible study with them. But then there's times during the work hours, let's just say during lunch break, a 30-minute gap when they're eating and they're also being fed the word as well. So we look for creative opportunities to always have Bible studies with our guys and present the gospel to them.
That's awesome.
When you guys started, I remember it well. Yeah, Chris was a youth pastor and started to bring kids, normal kids, into the juvenile center, and you started getting a heart for these kids, seeing them as leaders, and started to do Bible studies in facilities, and like many ministries and people who are on today, you do this for not too long, and the whole reentry thing starts to pop big. Like, well, what happens when they get out? Or we're seeing too many returners to our chapel services.
Yeah.
And so you've tackled what's, I think, the toughest part of it all. Everybody wants to start a business, and we had 5 going at one time. And you've started a number of them to employ these guys, and you're still standing, so hats off to you guys. But describe some of the businesses that are working, and then describe some that didn't work. It's like Homeboy said, indoor doing a plumbing service just didn't work. Who knew people didn't want life for prisoners in their home working in their bathroom? Who knew?
Wow.
So we gave that one up. But which ones have worked well, and which ones did you try that didn't, and how did you figure out what you wanted to do with these?
Jeremiah, why don't you tell us about what we do, and I'll talk about all of our failures.
Yeah, so our construction and culinary, those are really the ones that are shining right now. We're having the most success with those. What it took was finding an employer who wanted to give back. Because when they give back to the kids and they understand, they fully understand what we're doing and what the goal is. And so they rally behind the kids just like we do. And so we find that that's helping in the success of construction. The same thing with culinary. It's helping the kids create something from scratch, and then them seeing people coming in time and time again to purchase what they've created just builds a a relationship through food. And so that's become a success. So definitely those two things I'd like to just kind of put out there in the forefront.
Yeah, I mean, some of the things that we've done that hasn't really worked that well, or maybe worked for a while but didn't stand the test of time. We got into a lot of woodworking. A son of a dad who taught me a lot of woodworking things coming up. So we created a lot of wood projects and ornaments and signs and various things. And it was good for a period of time, but you realize that things like house decor has a season, a fad, if you will. And then so people move on. So to be a part of things that had sort of a cutting edge, or really anything that has to do with sales, is exhausting. So my advice for anybody that's wanting to get some work started or businesses started, I sort of think in three layers. Number one, the first thing I'd like to think of is there an existing business that is already running, that already has sales, that's doing something that just needs labor, that needs a labor talent? We can partner with people like that and say, hey, can I help supply you labor? And then when you do that, it's a simple exchange of time for a dollar amount. And it's really good for the bottom line. And it doesn't take a lot of management. So that's one, an easy one. A second one would be more of like what I call a co-own, or sort of work together with a up and coming entrepreneur. They've got something going. They're sort of the face of whatever that is. And we can come alongside and maybe help together and maybe turn and say, hey, we can, you go ahead and make this product. We can offer it to our donor base or to the contacts that we have around us. And then the third is to own it yourself, which I would say is ultimately, at least I would say, don't rush to do that. Those are the ones that are the hardest, because you're literally starting businesses. And each business really needs to have its own identity, its own passion, its own, squad behind it. So it's the ones that are the hardest to do.
Yeah, I think that's, when we started, we basically started these businesses, a cafe, a silkscreen business, a thrift store. And we had all of the costs of running a business, and businesses, basically have to make money or they don't exist. So we were always in conflict with having a sustainable business. And then what we really want to do, which is train guys in doing their first jobs. And those were in just such conflict with each other. And so how do you resolve some of that? Or, like when you've got about 30 guys, I recall, that are at work ongoing,
Yeah.
that you're not losing money on it, but you're providing the service without all the overhead, I guess.
Sure. Yeah. Well, you have to think through several sort of, several ways to go about doing it. And, some of these things are the highest cost. So if you start off with your mind, I'm going to start this business, but I need a brick and mortar facility, or I need this sort of front or anything like that, you're really hurting yourself right from the start. But there are other ways to sometimes get the product you want that is a lot cheaper. One of the examples would be our culinary division, which we fully own that, but we really operate what is considered in the industry as a ghost kitchen. So there's not really like this presence where you can come in and dine with us. And it really keeps costs down substantially. You're not paying retail prices. One of the things that I want to do, and this is maybe someone in this audience can do it and sort of prove the model. I think one of the businesses that we can do is, since we already have a ghost kitchen, we can open up to up and coming restaurant or food truck or something like that, offer our facility for free in exchange for hiring our people, doing whatever, and then they're running with it. And so just little hacks like that to keep costs down. Another thing we do is we partner with churches that may have commercial kitchens, or that may have this type of vehicle, or may have a field that we can use. So finding less expensive or cheaper or free options out there.
Wow, that's great. What, somebody was asking how many hours a week do you employ youth when they come into it, or do you have some kind of orientation before you put them out on a job site? How do you get them ready for work?
Yeah, so you're talking about youth that have come from straight jail, from lockup, or us finding them on the street, or just however we get them. So they're coming in and we're having an orientation with them. We kind of let them know what we're about. This is a place where you're going to come change. We're building a culture. We want you guys to be a part of the culture, and this is what that looks like. And then once they agree through orientation, like, okay, man, this is what I want, then we move to the next step, which is obviously employing them. And so we're working with them from 30 to 40 hours a week. And that's, I think, where the change comes from, because it's purely through relationship with our supervisors who are out there with them, working alongside them, and learning about not only themselves, but what the core issues that they have going on in their lives are. And so then we're able to rally behind that. And now we're causing change, right? So now we're literally teaching them how to work, create things, and construction. They're seeing houses built from the ground up. They're seeing the houses being sold. And in culinary, it's them seeing the preparation of the food and then it being sold, right? That's where the change is. And then when we find out about the core issues, homelessness, gangs, drug addiction, whatever it may be, dysfunctional family, then we're able to help them there and guide them in the direction that they need to go in.
Yeah, so somebody comes and they get their first check after 40 hours, and that's pretty good news and pretty bad news, because I got money in my pocket. And you don't come back next week, or you come back with some new drugs. So, you know, that obviously in the world out there, you don't get 3 strikes and you're out. So how do you work those conversations when, you know, and then how do you know when they're ready to move to another job? And this isn't like, you know, this isn't like a get a golden watch at the end of 30 years. You know, this is a stepping stone. So those are the 2 big things I think people run up against, is how you navigate them on the front end when they're not yet very work ready, and then how do you gently push them out so they don't get so comfortable, so there's room for others.
And I think the unique situation with us is a lot of our supervisors, including myself, and a lot of our staff have been incarcerated, right? We've been locked up, we've done time. And so when we give them the paycheck, we give them a reminder with that paycheck, like, understand you can do 1 or 2 things with this. You could do good with it, or you could do bad with it. A lot of times our youth do bad, right? And because we're a ministry, we have a grace period, right? We're like showing them grace and mercy. But then it comes to a point, if it continues to happen, it becomes a learning lesson, a suspension, or you're not ready yet. Contact us in 2 or 3 months. And then we'll go down that route time and time again. They contact us and they're like, man, okay, I want to take this more seriously. And then that's when we start seeing the success happen.
Yeah, the job is interesting. We try to use our pay structure as a way to incentivize. One, on the front end, we need to get people used to making a regular paycheck, where a regular stream of money coming in, because when they do that, in some ways it helps stabilize what they're doing, but they also become expectant of it, and they just start to, you know, accumulate maybe a place to live or a car or something like that. So then they begin to need that. It's funny that I didn't think we would have to set up breadcrumbs to get people to sort of need the steadiness of a paycheck. But on the same way, we put our pay structure, and we tell people we're really open from the start. You know, we pay basically minimum wage. And so we say, we're not going to pay real well, but there's a reason for that. We can get you jobs that are going to pay oftentimes double what we pay. If you kind of come in here, you know, you're here for 6-8 weeks, showing a strong effort that you're a good employable person. We want you to get that next jump. And we know we're doing things right when they don't want to leave and they're like, man, I just want to stay here because I feel the love here, the culture, the DNA, and they're taking less money. But that's where we encourage them, like, go get your next thing. We're not completely leaving you, but go to that next level. Go be sort of the example.
Right.
What's the what's the biggest pitfall? There's a number of questions coming through around, hey, what about starting a car wash or detailing business or your own construction or, so those are all like mechanisms, but like what's the, yeah, if you had to nutshell, this is the stuff that'll trip you up on this, that we've had to learn over and over and.
And for me, just really quick, it's having the wrong people in place. Our kids, I think they're attracted to the people that are most like them, and that's where the change comes from. If you have the wrong person in place to supervise and mentor our kids, it seems like it'll never work. There's always
you're saying the wrong staff, not the wrong kids, but getting people that aren't the right staff to work with these kids. Yeah,
most definitely. Yep. The people have to have a passion, and they have to understand the young men and women that they're working with. They have to understand that it's high trauma, and so they have to be ready for that. The temperament. I can tell you this: God has shown me patience through what we do at work every day. So, yeah, definitely, right staff.
Yeah. And as far as like, there's no right or wrong business. The more you know a business or the more you partner with someone that knows a business, it's going to be good. Here's some hidden things that people just never think about. That's some of the most important. Get a good bookkeeper that can handle a whole influx of information, payroll. When you're doing W-2s for 200 people annually, you got to have your ducks in the order. You have to. And so that's where, if you can put some of this back end pieces, proper bookkeeping, a database of folks that are interested in sort of whatever it is you're doing, whether it's a food service or you can be collecting and shooting out from there. If you put some of these centerpieces available, then you can grow and expand and do other businesses depending on whatever you're into.
So you run everything through your books and all these guys, because the government now doesn't really let you just do these as stipends. They got to be legit employees, right?
Right.
So that's all the W-9, all the information. Some of these guys don't have IDs and immigration issues, all that. But then once they're in there, you pay them, which is what we do too through our books. And you place them out in the community in culinary or construction. What are the challenges working with employers, and what's important to put that into place to make it successful?
I think Hedemias hit it at the start. The expectations of employers at the start. Employers are looking for, they rightfully so should be thinking about their business first. But if you don't oversell, which is so hard to do, not oversell at the start, but tell them, hey, do you need labor? Do you need labor with supervision? And that's what we do that's unique. We not only give them the labor, but we're going to bring our guys to kind of help handle the headaches. But don't oversell it. We're going to go, hey, the employees we're going to bring you at best are C- employees. But, we're going to keep costs lower for you. We're going to do a variety of things that, they can see through the clouds, but they know what it is. But to go, hey, if we can take D+ or C-, and then as soon as they get to a B-, we're going to let them go and we're going to go back to D+. But we can consistently be here to help handle the supervision headache, because hardly no one wants to take that on.
Yeah. Do some of them then end up hiring these guys on their books? Is that the hope, or in what they have in mind too? This is just like a way to
So we've had a couple of guys here just recently that got hired on from our construction company that we work with. And then we've had also other trades that work with the construction company who's like, man, that dude is awesome. I want him on my team. And then it's just a soft handover after that.
Yeah. And I will say this, something's obviously with what's happening with social injustices or criminal justice reform over the past couple of years, we've created some businesses working directly with either county commissioners or city, city council or whatnot, where they have a lot of things that need to be done. They have their own labor pool. But again, if you work for the county or the city, we know these are good paying jobs. And so we just say, hey, instead of having your people that your minimum is of pay is way up here, along with all the benefits and everything, hey, we can come in and do some side work for you, or street cleanup or recycling or various things. You could pay this much. And so one of our local cities, after using us for a year, wrote up a whole report about how much money the city saved by hiring us.
That's awesome. So I just want to let you guys know we have people from Kentucky, Connecticut, Colorado, Illinois, Massachusetts, Ohio, California, Tennessee. The questions are coming in. Someone from Memphis, Tennessee wanted to know what motivated you both to do this work? Like what gets you excited, enthusiastic about this work?
Well, I'll take this real quick, but I think our answers may be the same. All of us have been arrested before or come from that environment, so we know the obstacles that are there. And especially with what we've seen over the past couple of years, like I said, with hopes of criminal justice reform or social injustices that are happening, it's our job to take that initial anger of social injustices and turn that into proven pathways of transformation. The talent pool of formerly incarcerated people is deep, and it's an untapped pool primarily. So we're just trying to figure out a way to transition people, because we see a common problem in almost every community when the economy is doing pretty good and we're not in a pandemic, is small business owners say, I can't find enough good people. And so we need to make that path. And we know that we've stepped out of that path and there's others that are stuck.
How about you, Jeremiah? What's your motivation?
I remember just really fast praying when I was 12 years old while I was locked up in juvenile detention center. If I ever had an opportunity to help youth not follow the trail that I did, I was going to do that. And so when I was offered the position, it was a no-brainer for me. So that's what's led me to where I'm at today.
Awesome.
Yep.
Aubrey Williams is on, and she says, do you also do character development, etiquette, how to respectfully deal with authority? She says, I did time as well and had a whole lot to learn before I was actually employable. She said she had to learn not to cuss someone out, how not to burn bridges, showing up on time, keeping her word, etc. Great question, Aubrey. Well, how would you answer that?
It is a great question. Just really fast on our end, character development is one of our, it's one of our, we know that has to be there in order for us to move them on to an employer who's willing to hire them. That being said, we've also began relationships with our youth and law enforcement because we understand the importance of that. We understand what it looks like when a youth has questions and they're just not answered because there's a breakdown somewhere. So for us to be able to bridge the gap between our youth and law enforcement, we've literally seen change from the youth saying they want nothing to do with law enforcement to those same youth who are now hugging law enforcement and talking with them and consistently having conversations. And so we understand the importance of that. So yeah, character development is definitely key in the transformation of our youth.
Awesome. Another question came in. This is maybe a business practice question. They say, how is the rate of pay determined for young people? Is there an hourly rate that they're paid and then an additional administrative cost that goes to the organization to help recoup some of the costs? How does that work?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I'll give you a couple different ways where an organization can profit out of this. Number one, you have to look at what are your state minimums. Number two, as you jump into a business, you got to look at what is the average pay that someone would make when they start that, not when what's the entry level start of that industry? Typically, there's a discrepancy as far as like as low as you could pay to start someone off and the low of anyone that's, halfway employable. So typically you have some growth there where you can go to a company and say, hey, you're typically hiring people first day, $13 an hour. I can bring people, let's say $11 an hour. You have a sort of a $2 buffer within that. The other thing is as you create partnerships with employees on the back end, many employers are willing to give incentives to you to giving them good employees. They may give you $1 or $2 per hour for the first 750 hours of that employee. You can also work out agreements with them to say, I'm not asking them anything for you initially, but we're going to send you people. But we also run some fundraising events throughout the year. So if we have these events, could you come and be sponsors of those events? And you can also advertise to our donor base. So there's a few different ways to keep yourself afloat besides just sort of the bottom line of a product and how much does it cost.
That's awesome. How many different employers are you guys working with at this point? And what makes a good employer match for you, and one that you would just say, this is, stay away from these kind of scenarios?
We partner with about 50 different organizations that we call hiring partners that they're going to hire.
How many?
About 50.
50, 50.
Yeah, 50. And we just let them know, even though, hey, we're gonna employ a couple hundred people a year, we're really only asking you to look at a few a year. Even our people that hire the most of our people, they hire less than 5 people a year from us. So to have a broad network, you want to find employers that it typically takes a really hands-on manager or a close relationship with a manager. If it's a large corporation, you have to have that personal relationship, or it's a smaller business and you have just a quick connection where, and someone that can hire quick too. They're steadily needing people. So you can go, hey, go over here, we can work out things where I may just send an email, or on the application, just say that you came from Jail to Jobs. They'll know what that means.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Because the handoff is time consuming, or for, people like Hedemius or other supervisors, we still don't even have the time to go around and have you go to 5 different places.
And how do you get most of your youth into this program? Is because now you're not in the juvenile facilities with the closing you've had with COVID and all that. Where are they coming from?
So a lot of them are just word of mouth. So their friends came through it. They've been locked up before. They understand that that's the requirement. You have to have at least been locked up or arrested in order for you to work with us. A person that's been working here knows 15 of those guys. So all of a sudden they're letting them know. And that's kind of how we've been getting a lot of our kids since the pandemic.
So have you ever had a kid get locked up on purpose just so he could qualify to get a job with you guys?
That's not far-fetched though. I'm telling you that.
I literally have I've had moms specifically say, hey, can you work with my kid? Sure. Has he been arrested? She goes, I'll have him arrested tomorrow.
Somebody asked a question. What about other employees resenting that the owner is hiring ex-inmates? Have you ever run into that?
Well, have you seen that, Hedemius?
I haven't seen that personally.
Again, we're typically jumping into industries where maybe there's some comfort level. Let's say, for example, in the restaurant world, a large population of people in the restaurant world have been arrested before, or construction. We obviously have some industries, manufacturing, where you're going to see some of that. City and county level stuff, less. But yeah, I don't know. I actually haven't heard of that. And maybe it's because we set the right parameters at the start. But a lot of the stigmas that we've lived with for decades and decades about don't hire people with criminal records anymore, it's really starting to change finally.
Yeah. Thank God.
When you have cities supporting what we're doing and they're wanting to hire our kids, that's just letting us know that there's transformation happening from within.
Yeah.
Well, gentlemen, we want to say thank you so much for sharing some of your stories, some of your insight and lessons learned with this group. We want to thank our participants who've dialed in from all over the country. We'll be back next month in February, 3rd Thursday of the month. We're going to be featuring Freestyle Magazine, who's also based in Texas, in the Houston area. Great ministry, serving kids, and a great resource. So with that, I'll give you Chris and Jeremiah, I'll give you the last word.
Yeah, can you put up if there's a contact info, Chris's home phone and his.
Yeah, if you guys want to put, you want to put your contact information in the chat, that would be great, so how people can reach you. But you know, any last encouraging words or advice you'd have before we close out, Chris?
I mean, I'm not that inspiring. Hedemias, you are a walking inspiration. What would you say?
I would say that the youth today, all over the United States, we're going through some things. You guys can see it when you guys turn your TV on. And there needs to be strong men and women, and I'm going to say it of God, that need to champion behind our youth. That's the only way we're going to be able to change the direction of what's been going on here recently. So if I can leave anything, that's what it would be. Just have a passion for it, know that your position and God has you right where he wants you.
And then as far as contact goes, jailthejobs.com, Jail the Jobs on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, any of those kind of things. You can direct message. We have a phone number, all those kind of things.
Yep.
Awesome, awesome. Well, we've recorded today's session. We've also shared it live on Facebook on our Every Youth, Every Facility Facebook page. So if you get a chance and you want to share the information you heard today, go ahead and hit share on that as well. Thanks, everybody. Have a great evening, great afternoon.
Right.
God bless.
God bless.
Thank you, everybody.